Hey folks, this is your host, the one, the only, Thrifty Gamer 83. It's been a while, and I just decided instead of the two-part episode, I'm just going to put it into one episode completely. It's going to focus on Freedom Fighters by EA, and I just couldn't help myself. This is a game which raises the bar on the stereotypical nature of the USA versus the USSR to dazzling new caricature heights, which includes the factors that the US didn't drop the first nuclear weapons. Instead, it was the USSR. This is a great piece of what could have happened in the rise of a more prominent and powerful Iron Curtain. And with the USSR in the historical vein of dystopian timeline, instead, the Red Army had dropped it right onto Berlin. They had dropped the first nuclear weapon in the game storyline onto Berlin, which made the USA more of a viable candidate to be easily manipulated by outside interests, including the USSR, and becoming little more than a tributary nation with puppet heads and figures attached throughout history, who really didn't have anything other than a kind eye for those in the Stalinistic venue of this game. I will say this is an excellent caricature at times. When you look at the characters, when you hear the voices, it definitely signifies what could have happened or would have happened. The USA was on an uneven playing field from the get-go in this game, and largely the Soviets were just slowly waiting and building and establishing themselves to create cells and networks. All in all, it's really a concept which would have worked had it have been one of EA's true AAA efforts. Largely, though, the caricature graphics and the uneven storyline really seem to work against it. It has a lot of promise as a title. It's a cult favorite, I can tell you that much. I actually like it myself. The one things I don't like are toggle wheels, which drive me right up a frickin' wall. And along with that, having to hold something down besides an L2 control. That just drives me up a wall. And no, you cannot change it in the PlayStation 2 configuration. Trust me, I've tried it. It's annoying, but it's there. It's kind of that tacky early 2000s aiming system holding down the analog stick to try and make the shot. And I just hate that. I like being able to zoom in with L2 and zoom out with the circle and zoom in with the triangle. Call me old-fashioned. That's how I like my games. That's how I like having an aiming system. I do like this game, though. It took a lot of elements which work well together, including the old resistance that worked against the USSR and Soviets. It just kind of feels cheap and immature with EA handling it. I think Freedom Fighters could have been so much more of a game, but instead it's more of a cartoonish run-and-gun game. I know they did try to incorporate some stealth elements into it, but I don't feel it. I like Freedom Fighters, I really do. I like the character development, the angle, and the light squad-based elements. It's really fun, and it really had promise at the time. Today, like I said before, it's a novelty, it's a caricature, it's funny, and it works on its basic premise. And the character you control is a plumber. Just a plumber, caught in the middle of the Soviet invasion, who falls in line with the resistance. And from then on, it's pretty much trying to reclaim what has been taken by the Soviets and creating more partnerships, raising your charisma within the group. That element I like. It's a slow affair. It's something that's good. You grind, you gain new information, you gain new tactics, you find new enemy tactics, as a matter of fact, which they will use. I enjoyed Freedom Fighters for the simple premise, the simple storyline. It's not really that convoluted. It doesn't have as many plot twists as, say, Metal Gear Solid. It's just the simple, old school U.S. versus the Soviets at the end of the 2000s, I should say, at the start of the 2000s. And the U.S. president is pretty much a figurehead who gives Russia and the Soviets everything that they demand in the end. I find that aspect works so well in creating what is this game's strongest point, and it should have really been capitalized, and for whatever reason, EA really didn't see fit to really take this to heart, that it could be a AAA title, that it could be a challenging game, that they could have assigned so much more to this product and project. And I see it as a labor of love to the 50s and 60s, that kind of mindset of my grandfathers who really didn't like communists, and it really showed. I also find it's just that kind of dystopian world view that would have worked so well in the 60s and 70s, and EA put its best foot forward somewhat in trying to cement it as a game that would have a cult following. I think that's largely what EA was looking at, the cult following aspect. They wanted to have a game that people would probably knock around the graphics. They're kind of a caricature, the aiming system, but they knew that people would find it just entrancing. They would like having a game which wasn't a out and out grenade fest. They would find a game which is simplistic in its bearing, and largely the enemies react as you would expect them to. If there's a Molotov thrown, they'll advance to cover, and that way you can find a way to slowly needle them out. And that's where I like some of the aiming aspects, however, not as much. I just wish it had gone to a traditional L2. You know, they did this for Medal of Honor. Why can't they at least do that for Freedom Fighters? I know it's third person versus first person, but come on. Give me a break, EA. You gotta give me something in the end. As much as I've knocked the control elements and the toggle inventory wheel, I do find it has a lot of great points as a game. I find the story, like I said before, it's simplistic but engaging. It's a dystopian worldview of what could have happened in the 50s and 60s if Russia had been that much more powerful than us technologically back in dropping the bomb on Berlin instead of the U.S. dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I could never really get that out of my mind when I used to read science fiction that dealt with what could become of the United States if the Soviets had taken over. And I think that's where the bearing and push for my like of Freedom Fighters has come from. Alright, folks, rant, rave, love, hate. Click that subscribe button. You're keeping my show on the air. Have a good one.